Thursday, September 23rd, has now been called to order. We will have the invocation by Mr. Spell, which will follow with the pledge. Please stand.
Dear Lord, we stand before you today humbly with your greatness, acknowledge that you are the one true Almighty God. Lord, we ask that you give us guidance, wisdom, and understanding to represent your people. Lord, we ask that you give us the wisdom to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community and the parish. And Lord, that we can represent you and your people that give your name honor and glory. Lord, please place your hand of protection over our troops, men and women that serve abroad, so that they can return safely home to their loved ones. And Lord, I offer a special prayer for the Johnson family, Lord, that you may place your hand of comfort and healing on their family. Lord, we thank you. We know that we are sinners. We ask for forgiveness, and we know that forgiveness is available through the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ. And we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Mr. Andropont?
Here.
Mr. Brame?
Here.
Mr. Collins is out of town this evening. Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mrs. Griffin?
Present.
Mr. Hassan?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Dr. Mackey? Present. Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Spell?
Here.
Mr. Stelly?
Here.
Mr. Sias is also out of town at a training session. Mrs. Trimmy is ill this evening, and President Guidry.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We want to welcome everyone here tonight, and we thank you for coming out. And at this time, we would ask that if there's anyone here that has a cell phone or a pager, we would ask that you would put that device to silence so we can conduct our meeting in an orderly fashion. And again, we do appreciate you being here because it's very important that I think you hear the views of our community, city, and parish. With that being said, we're going to move on from item number 5 and number 6, which is a 6 o'clock action, and we'll move on to item number 7. Take appropriate actions on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Vickers.
Mr. President, I'm pleased to advise you that we have 6 applications tonight, no controversy whatsoever. We recommend they be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. I have a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 7 passes. Item number 8.
Move on number 8.
Approval of all payments on all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Andropont and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 8 passes. Item number 9, receive report from staff regarding recent national award received from the police jury website. At this time, I'll call on our parish administrator, Mr. Beam.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. The website, as y'all remember, came out, the revised one, about a little over a year ago. And down the line, after it had been out several months, some of the national associations that give awards for these type things, some came our way, and then another one came our way, and we talked, Jason and I talked about it and said, you know, we really need to bring this before the police jury. And he said, well, just hold off a minute because we're in this one that we're eligible for. And I'm proud to tell you that we just received, for your police jury website, a national award. And I'm going to let Jason in a minute give you the names of all these because I really don't remember them all. But it's an exciting and a very good thing that this parish's website has been recognized nationally for its innovative design and its features, and it's something you can be very proud of, and I think you need to know about it. And I'm going to pat Jason on the back and all the team that works with him. His assistant, Julie Fay, is a big part of that. Vision Internet, the consultant we used, is a big part of that. But ultimately, it goes out and it's your face on the public all over the country and indeed all over the world. So I'll give Jason the podium for details, but we're very pleased with this and hope everybody in this parish is proud of their website.
Good evening. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the website. At the beginning of last year, the police jury set out to redesign our website with the primary goals in mind. We wanted it to be user-friendly, and we also wanted to have easy-to-access information for the many departments and services we provide to the community. Once the site was completed in its redesign process, it was launched to the public Thursday, June 4th, 2009. Since that time, and as of yesterday, our data shows that 173,376 people have visited the Police Jury website, which comes to an average of about 304 visitors per day. Just to be clear, this number reflects only those who have visited the site for the first time, not return visitors. Of the 173,000 visitors, approximately 49% of those people regularly return to the site on a routine basis. The parish website is also filled with a great deal of information. Of course, we have so many departments and programs, we want to make sure we cover all of them. When we launched the website to the public in 2009, the site contained about 900 web pages of information. As of yesterday, the collection has increased to nearly 3,000 pages in documents within the site. The three most popular sections of the site are GIS, Animal Services, and Job Openings. Over the course of the past many years, our society has also been adapting to the internet age and what is called social media. The way by which people obtain their news and information has clearly been affected in this new age. So because of this emerging trend, the police jury has embraced social media, and we utilize and implement its services each and every day of the work week, sending what's referred to as posts to online community residents. Each post almost always contains a link attached to it, which would, when someone clicks this, would direct them back to this parish website and give them even more information on the subject that they're reading about. And in this sense, we aren't just trying to reach our community with a certain piece of this information, we're also directing them to our own website, which may bring them to other portions of the website and learn a little bit more about what we have here at the police jury. We currently have a Facebook and Twitter page, and about 6 to 8 of these posts are sent out to nearly 400 people each day. Lastly, the police jury utilizes internet video whenever possible. All of the police jury meetings, like tonight's, and other parish-related programming is placed on our website via YouTube. So that's also a big plus. So now that I've given you an overview of our website, I'm here to inform you this evening that the police jury has been recognized both nationally and internationally for the efforts of the website's overall design and its easy accessibility to the information within the site. We've received the following awards. The Creativity International Awards is one of the longest-running independent international design competitions in the world, and we received an honorable mention. This is an international award. We also received an award of distinction from the Communicator Awards. Now, this is key because we have effective communication within our website, and that's key to sustaining the life of a website and ensuring that people will continually come back and read more about what we have to offer. So we received an award of distinction in that category. This award that I'm about to tell you about was something that took us by surprise. I had never heard of this, and it was something that someone else had entered us into, but it's the Hermes Creative Awards. It's a huge international competition, and it is very sought after, and the police jury received the highest honor. We received the Platinum Award, and it was very interesting to see what we received as a token prize, I guess. And I have it with me. I'll show you what. This is the award that was given to us. I want to let you know of this Platinum Award. We are the only county, parish, municipality website in the country to receive this award. No one else, no other website received an award in this category in this competition that was a county, parish, and municipality. So this is a big, big honor. When we received it, it came in this very specially packaged custom foam box, and I opened it up, and it just happened to be the date of my birthday, and it was FedEx, and I was just looking at it. I'm like, what is this? And it literally, I'll pass it around later by the end of the meeting, but it literally is about 10 pounds. It is like me and Julie call it the Oscar because it's like, holding the Oscar. And so anyway, I wanted to show you this. Lastly, the one award that Brian was referring to was the 3 CMA Savvy Awards. Now, this is something that is really, like in government terms, the Oscars for the websites, because what it really is all about is it's only for government-related agency websites, and it really judges on the effectiveness of communications that we can provide to the community. We received an award of excellence, and that was just announced in September, early this month, September 9th. This is another situation where in this category we were the only parish county government to receive this recognition. That's a big deal. So finally, I just want to tell you, this website is not easy to maintain. We have 3,000 pages of information that we're always adding. And these awards are primarily due to the hard work of our web content coordinator, Julie Fay. Now, Julie is a trooper and keeps the tight ship with all the areas of the site. If we didn't have her hard work, we wouldn't be receiving this kind of recognition, and we also wouldn't have the 173,000 people that have come here. And Julie's here tonight. If Julie will stand up. Julie does a really good job with the website. And when this award came, I said, this is in your office. This goes right there. And so it just stays in her office right there on the desk. So we're really proud to have her. Now, on the horizon, we're going to be continually looking at ways to make the website even more effective for our residents of the parish. And so that's a recap of the awards.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. We do have questions. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Great job. We all know how awesome it is. A lot of the parish obviously visit. On the kids link, thank you, Hal. Always looking out for me. On the kids link, can you tell how many kids have actually went to that link? Is there any way to know that?
Unfortunately, we can't say how many. All of the data that we receive is based on what's called IP addresses, and that's your own custom code from your computer. So it gives us a lot of information. We can even say where people are living, when, what area of the region they're accessing the most. But we can't get to age demographics, unfortunately.
And you talked about adding to it. What's the latest thing you've added to it that y'all are the proudest of?
Well, the latest thing that we've added that is really effective is the social media part of it all. If you'll refer to the screen here, right where the mouse is going over, that has just been added. It's called Calcasieu On Demand. It was added earlier at the beginning of the summer because we wanted to allow people to have a direct link. We have a lot of people that go on Facebook only. They don't look. And so what we had is we have that Calcasieu On Demand that links them up to our own parish page on social media and YouTube and Twitter. And then also, if you click on any page within this website, there's something called Bookmark and Share. And when you put your mouse over a share part of the website, it actually gives you options to share this information on your own personal Facebook or Twitter site or whatever. And I will point out, I call him on the spot, but Mr. Guy Brame here is very, very big with Facebook and our stuff. We put posts up, and he's always doing a thumbs up like this and all that. So Guy's real active on that.
I don't have time.
Sounds like you got too much time.
Much time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Jason.
I believe you said that, Jason.
Is there any other questions by the jury?
He's going to be on it now.
Let me just make a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Andrew.
That really needs to be publicized, that it's a unique deal, and we're the only ones that receive this award. That's something to crow about. No puns
Don't
intended.
agree, Mr. Andrew. By all means. Any other questions by the jury? Lawrence, great job. Appreciate it. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
This time we'll move on to item number 10. Receive report from staff regarding the utilization of remaining CDBG disaster recovery funds related to Hurricane Rita and take appropriate action thereon. Our parish administrator, Mr. Beam, again.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask you to each turn to your attachments on number 10 in the back. There's 3 pages associated with this item. And this item is the proposed allocation of remaining disaster recovery funds related to Hurricane Rita. I think a quick background is in order to bring us to where we are tonight. The original allocation from long-term recovery dollars that ultimately was from the HUD federal agency that went through the state, the LRA, and came to parishes. $18.2 million, as y'all will recall, came to Calcasieu from CDBG. Of the total, $7 million went to the Seed Center, which, by the way, is being advertised for bids for construction. So that's very close to getting kicked off, and we'll have a groundbreaking for that in the near future as that gets closer. After the $7 million came off the top, the City of Lake Charles got $5.6 million, Calcasieu Parish got $5.6 million. So that's what this funding is. The plan I think it was 2007, you were required to submit a long-term recovery plan, and in that it had a priority set of projects. Early on, we actually asked in one of the projects was to pay for drainage studies, which at the time we knew that was something the police jury was going toward. It was conveyed to us at that time, however, that those funds could not be used for drainage studies. The project eligibility with CDBG is a really challenging issue, and there's some things that fit, some don't. So some time passed trying to figure out what we could ask for and what we couldn't. Then along came Ike, and when Ike came, it sort of put that on hold a bit, and we actually, and it's good news in the sense there was some Ike funding. Police jury appointed what was a working group of jurors, and I'll ask some of you to comment as I kind of wrap through this, and you provide your own comments. But that group actually recommended funding proposal for Ike. So this was coming back to the original allocation that's remaining. President Guidry appointed that same group to go ahead and evaluate how to use the remaining money. And some of you may recall there were some proposals sent. But the working group, after several meetings throughout the course of first half of this year, up to very recently, was very strong. And again, I'll let the jurors on that group talk about it, but to utilize the funds for drainage-related activities, which was in the top 5 set of projects. During that time, earlier this year, some good news came our way that we didn't expect. I don't know what happened, but the state said you can use this money for drainage studies. Well, by that time, you had already committed gaming funds and completed most of the drainage studies. That's going to finish this year. But $3.6 million worth had already been done, and CDBG has allowed that money to be used. So in essence, they're reimbursing you for drainage studies. The good news is you can turn around and use that free and clear for whatever you need. And as a part of our recommendation of that 5.6, that you just put that money into drainage projects, since you've already basically paid for at least that much of the studies. The remaining $2 million, and it's at the top here, is remaining, and the recommendation per the working group is to utilize that on an actual drainage project, in this case the High Hope Road project. It fits the criteria for CDBG the best out of everything we've had. And there's a lot more involved with that particular set of funds. The 3.6 is really clean, if you will, in terms of not a lot of obligations that you have to fulfill with CDBG. So the recommendation sheet, and I'll just review that real quickly and ask members of the group to comment, is to utilize of that funds $2 million for the High Hope Road project, and there's 3 resolutions that are required associated with that is all CDBG related. That's a bunch of technical, resolutions, and Claire Thompson is here if you have questions on that. The remaining money through 3.6, the way I want to give Tim Connor a lot of credit for this. Once the group, with the consensus, and it was really unanimous, that it go toward drainage, the Road and Drainage Trust Fund process was already underway. So we utilized that, and all the drainage districts were advised, submit projects that you really want to do that are high priority, and let's use that road and drainage process to get those awarded, and then we would have a set of projects that are high priority. In addition to that, because these studies have been done by consultants, all of these on the bottom list have passed that test and fit within the models that say these are good projects. So sometimes the wait, even though it wasn't intended to be this long, turns out to be a very beneficial thing, and it's well worth the wait if these are done. I think this is a very good set of projects for money. These are drainage projects throughout the parish, and the good news is there's actually enough to where there's money left over where you can set it aside, and our recommendation would be to earmark that for future drainage projects. So that's a quick, or maybe not so quick, explanation of what this is. And so you need as a body to approve that. But what you're officially proposing, what we're proposing tonight is the utilization of those funds. And there's a key deadline coming up for CDBG through the state that we have to adhere to, and that's why it's on your agenda tonight.
Move on that motion.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection?
I have a question.
We do have questions. Ms. Griffin?
Thank you, sir. Brian, all of the funds that we receive in the CDBG, that's coming in, all of the funds come from the state of Louisiana?
They actually are federal funds through Housing and Urban Development,
As soon as the vote.
which is
I won't.
Community Development Block Grant sent through the state. So it's really federal funds.
It's federal funds?
Yes, ma'am.
Funded through the state and funded down through the police jury, and they set the criteria?
It's really both. The federal, it's mostly federal criteria. The state had its own criteria, but it's in addition to the federal. So it is kind of a complicated process. And that's why it needs to be separated out for the $2 million. Yes, ma'am, it's
Okay.
mostly federal.
Okay. I was trying to regurgitate information from the past as to how this was set up, particularly with this hurricane money that we've received. So I get it now.
Okay.
It's funded down. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Mr. Landry?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to congratulate Mr. McMillan on the High Hope deal. I know honestly, he's been working on that for a long time. And I will make sure that I go out there and change the wording on that sign. It's going to say yes at the end. Hal, and then, yes.
Drainage, Hal, yes.
Hal, yes, right, correct. I will fix that. And I do apologize for putting that sign up. Actually, I did not put the sign up, but no, really, that's a good thing. And I don't know how else that was going to get done. $2 million just doesn't grow on trees, but that's a very needed project. I think those people are kind of in a bowl over there, from what I understand, and that's the only way to fix it. So, you did a good job, Hal.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. I'll have comments after the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you for being so kind, Mr. Landry. Mr. Andrew Point?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if I can follow that act or not. I, too, want to congratulate you, Hal, in light of the fact that you did take a beating on that area, from that area, I should say. But that's indicative, in my opinion, as to what we do here. We get criticized a lot for things that we maybe do or don't do correctly or incorrectly, but we are charged with trying to provide a better quality of life for those that we represent. And I think that indeed proves that we strive, even if it's behind the scenes. Nothing a lot of times doesn't come to the floor, but behind the scenes, all these activities are going along. And I think that the fact that we were able to get these funds and get these people out of that dire situation that they're in over there, I think speaks well, not only of you, but those staff here who worked real hard to get that money.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
President.
Andrew Point. Mr. Bean?
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Just a couple of points I left out. One, that the monies at the bottom that are listed are actually matching funds. So the money, the $2.6 million plus, is actually about $5.6 million worth of projects. So it's you doubling the use of this money. It's stretching very far. The districts either put it up themselves or they got other matching funds. So it's, I know I said it, but some of these are long-term key drainage projects for years that have been needed that there just wasn't funding for. And as you can see, it's throughout the parish, but for those that may not be in here, there's still some funds. If there's an area that's working on a project, there's time for later. We're not going to rush to try to spend the rest of that or propose it. And there's also the projects that Alan, through these consultants, have identified. Several of them would be parish projects, like culvert crossings and so forth. So you can decide later. You don't have to rush to that. But the good news is there's more money. We'll come back to you later with the priority recommendations for that.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. We do have questions. Ms. Griffin?
Thank you. Mr. Bean, I'm glad you said that. So we don't have a time limit on when we have to spend the money?
Well, we do with the CDBG, the $2 million. That has to get kicked off very quickly. And Our proposal as part of this, as you will see on the next 2 pages, is to enter agreements with each of these districts to, like the trust fund, to try to spend this money within the 12-month period. And believe me, they're going to be raring to go. But the remaining funds for the bottom part, I think is your question, we're not in any huge hurry to have to do that. We want to do it the right way, but we won't wait too long either.
Okay, because sometimes they do have a limit on the time.
Yes, that's why we want to put this on tonight. We are going to encourage these projects on this list to go out as expediently as possible.
So that $926,000, that's the money that you're going to have for reserve projects that's needed?
Yes, ma'am. The recommendation is to earmark that for future projects to be identified. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's good. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion? We have discussion. Sorry, Mr. Scott.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. President. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't congratulate Mr. Spell, and the people in Moss Bluff have done very well in this drainage issue also. I mean, they're not far behind the $2 million on High Hope Road, so Mr. Andropont's exactly right. We do things parish-wide, and so the people in Moss Bluff ought to really be happy with what Mr. Spell's been able to do to help out on this drainage issue, almost $1.5 million, so I think that's pretty good there, Mr. Spell. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Scott. Would you like to comment on that, Mr. Spell?
Yes, I would. Mr. Scott, I appreciate it. And on behalf of the people of Ward 1, I would like to thank this jury, but really the credit goes to the gentleman at Gravity Drainage District Number 8, Mr. John Rehan and the staff there. They put a lot of work into these applications and work very closely with staff. And those gentlemen really did their homework and did all the work. And so I just want to appreciate those gentlemen for doing the work and doing what was asked of you. But Mr. Scott, thank you. And on behalf of the people of Ward 1, I do thank my colleagues for being supportive of what I consider tremendous drainage improvement projects in Ward 1. And it is my hope that we can continue this program on an annual basis, possibly utilizing gaming money, so we can have a tremendous impact parish-wide for all areas of the parish. And I think we will, as Mr. Andropont said, be contributing to the welfare and well-being of the people of this parish. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Spell. At this time, I call on my Vice President, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also like to allude to what Brian commented on the magnitude of the matching funds that we got for this. Just in Ward 4, Gravity Drainage District Number 5, this $1 million that was put up out of this fund for 2 projects got matching funds of $3 million from Gravity Drainage District Number 5. So they really stepped up to the plate with 2 major projects in that area, in the Sulphur Corliss area. And it's going to help out a lot of stuff out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Is there any other discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 10 passes. At this time, I call on a point of personal privilege on Mr. McMillan, please.
Thank you. I didn't want to really look at a vote and think that I had to vote 100%. But I want to thank all my colleagues for voting on this and getting the $2 million for High Hope. The reason I didn't speak before is I wanted to make sure that the vote passed, and it did pass, and it passed unanimously, and I appreciate y'all on that. With that being said, I have one of the district board members here, Cade Cole, who's been on this project from day one. Mr. Andropont, you're absolutely right in speaking that those people have suffered up there. There's been homes with water in them. The crowd that was here for many meetings to try to get help. We have got $2 million that has come as a windfall to these folks to put with the $1.4 million we have to finish a $3.4 million project in Ward 6, which in their taxation rolls is not a very big taxation roll to get this kind of windfall of money. This is tremendous. Kate, I'd ask if I know he wants to say thank you real quick. I'd ask if Kate could come to the podium just a moment as representing that water district, that Gravity Drainage Board district up here. It's done a lot of work on behalf of getting this passed.
Mr. President, Mr. McMillan, I do want to say thank you. As Hal was just alluding to, this capital project is about 10 times the operating budget of the Ward 6 Drainage District, which I think speaks in part to the antiquated way in which drainage is handled through the drainage boards, but more importantly, through the visionary way in which the jury is supporting drainage and allowing improvements to be made throughout the parish. My understanding is that the $20 million or so that's been put in road and drainage trust fund monies over the past 18 years has led to $50 million of drainage improvements. Similarly, this money will lead to a similar multiplying effect, north, south, east, and west, city and rural, throughout the parish. I think it's going to be transformative in keeping areas that have flooded perennially from flooding, and I want to thank the entire jury for putting this money towards drainage where it's very, very needed, and for having the vision to think parish-wide and spread the money out. Of course, Mr. McMillan has kept our particular project on the front burner, and you know, we thank Senator Mount and Representative Guyman and all the legislators for the funds they put to it. But Mr. McMillan and y'all as a jury have got us our critical piece, and we thank you very much.
With that being said, Cade, real quickly, I want to let y'all know this project is shovel-ready. For what these guys have done with this gravity drainage district, we have our Corps of Engineer permit. So with that being said, we're going to expedite this as quickly as possible. We're going to keep the people well informed. We hopefully will be going out for bids on this within the first quarter of next year once we get all the CDBG funds done. So this project should be a reality. And just so you know, where those folks live is about 17-foot elevation. Once we cut through the Weiss Ridge, we'll go down to a 5-foot elevation. So that water ought to drain out of there like draining out of a bathtub. It's going to be tremendous for these folks that have had a major flooding problem. We now will have 4 48-inch pipes that will drain that area in the High Hope Road area through a ridge from 17 feet down to 5 feet. It's just miraculous, the hard work that this entire jury and these guys have worked on to get this project done. We're truly excited about it. Thank you very much.
Mr. McMillan's correct. There's a unique problem in that it's the only place in the parish where water flows north, because otherwise it would have had to go up about 10 feet in elevation. We're going to take it down, solve that problem. Our Corps permit has been 21 months in the making and was finally issued 2 months ago. And I think that's one of the reasons why we fit the CDBG funds, which have to be expended over the next 12 months, so well, and that part is done. Now, the people are ready for us to go. Mr. Beam has explained there are some other federal requirements, some environmental assessments and things. But the Corps permit, which is the biggest one, is completed. We'll work on those, and as Hal said, hopefully be able to break ground roughly in March.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. At this time, we're going to go ahead and go back to our 6 o'clock action. It's about that time now, and we'll move back upon the item to number 5. The following has been advertised in accordance with the law for action to be taken at 6 p.m. Police jury shall sit as a board of review to hear any protests on current tax assessments and take appropriate action thereon. I'll call on my parish administrator, Mr. Beam. This time I think Mr. Richard Cole has come to the podium.
Yes, on this item, I'll turn it over to Richard in a moment. Every year at this time, you sit as a board of review for any tax protest for property tax assessments. There were actually 4 protests filed, excuse me, this year. 2 of them were settled and resolved already between Mr. Cole and those entities. There are 2 others that have been submitted directly to you, which Richard will explain and for you to take action on.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. Please state your name and position here with the parish.
Richard Cole, Calcasieu Parish Assessor. Come to you tonight, George, to present 2 protests. One of them is CDM Resource Management protest. I'm passing these around, so I just gave you basically just a summary sheet. They have protested the last 2 years. Last year we went to the Louisiana Tax Commission. They are protesting a table in which their generators are assessed at. That's given to us by the state. We went last year, and the Tax Commission, they would not include or disclose their installation costs, their service costs, their transportation costs, and they said they're not going to do it. The Louisiana Tax Commission threw it out and said, come to our rules and regs hearings to voice your opinion. They did not show up last year, did not show up the year before, and so this is going to be a Tax Commission issue to take up. The second protest is from Women's and Children's Hospital. Last year, the Tax Commission took CT, MRI machines, these specialty high-tech machines, and turned them from a 5-year life to a 3-year life. Well, Women's and Children's is trying to turn all their medical equipment from that 5-year to a 3-year life, saying it's all high-tech. So, which we cannot determine which is which, and so it's just, this is a tax commission issue. They're protesting. It's going to cost about $2 million if they win the protest. So it's tax commission tables. Need to let it go to the tax commission. So I ask that y'all approve my values on both of these.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. We do have questions by the jury. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. On that first one, CDM, Richard, exactly what is the point of that? I mean, I remember you explained it to us last year. You even had some pictures of what they were talking about. And, I mean, for them to protest, I can understand that, but then they don't go to any of the meetings.
Yep.
And then the next year they protest again. To me, that doesn't make any sense.
The tax commission sets down a dollar value per horsepower that these compressors are assessed at, and we just plug in that dollar value. They give us what horsepower it is. We plug it in, and that's what goes to the tax roll. This is the only company that's ever protested, and they haven't shown us any evidence. They don't give us any paperwork. They don't give us nothing to support their materials at either here nor the tax commission, and I don't see them here tonight.
I mean, it's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah.
I mean, now, if it's truly incorrect, and then they show up to the meetings and have some type of backup showing that they're right and you're wrong, well, that'd be all right. But to do that three years in a row and not come to the meeting, that just doesn't make any sense.
I hate to say it, tax commission last year, chairman told them don't show up next year, so I'm curious what they're going to do now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Is there any other questions by the jury? Any objection?
Yeah, Mr. President, if you would, what's needed is a resolution from the jury approving tax assessor's recommendation regarding these protests.
I have a motion by Mr. Hassan and a second by Mr. Brame. Is there any discussion? Any objection? So move. Item number 5 passes. Thank you, Mr. Cole, for coming out, and we do appreciate you taking the time.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to item number 6. Hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. as a result of notice provided to the owners of property described below in accordance with Article 2, Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinance of the Parish of Calcasieu, Louisiana, ordering said owners to show cause as to why the structure and said properties should not be condemned. This time I call on Mr. Robinson. Please state your name and position here with the parish.
David Robinson. I'm the Code Enforcement Supervisor, Parish Planning and Development.
Is there anyone that needed to fill out a blue slip for any of the items that we're going to discuss tonight? This is a public hearing. If there's anybody that want to speak on any of the items, which is 9 items, would you please fill out a blue slip and bring that to the front to Ms. Jessica, and we'll make sure and get you on for that item that you want to speak on. With that being said, okay, we'll move on. 6.1, 2959 Renee Street. Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, this is 2951 Renee Street. This is in the North Lake Charles area. We have one manufactured home with an addition. The owner is Dewey D. Williamson, Edux. We recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Move to condemn.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Spell and a second by Mr. Hassan. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item number 6.1 passes. 6.2, 505 Linwood, Moss Bluff. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the Mossville area. It's one house. The owner of record is Wiley J. LaBert, and we recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item number 6.2 passes. 6.3, 2409 Alfred Road. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the Westlake area. We have one manufactured home with an accessory building. The owner of record is Richard Lee McCallan. We recommend this structure, both of these structures be condemned and removed in 30 days.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. Stelly. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.3 passes. Item 6.4, 402 East Street. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the Quincy area. We have one house here. The owner of record, Van Carter, We recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Move to condemn.
I have a motion by Mr. Spell and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone here from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.4 passes. Item 6.5, 2609 Rushmore. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the North Lake Charles area. We have one manufactured home. The owner is a Lamuel Ray Oliver et al. We recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Move to condemn. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Spell and a second by Mr. Landry. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.5 passes. Item 6.6, 2019 Sam Houston Jones Parkway. Mr. Robinson.
We had several lots on the agenda for this particular address, and I'm here to report that lots 20 and 35 have been repaired. Lot 28, the structure has been removed, so we're recommending that lot 48 be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Move to condemn lot 48. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Spell and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone at this time from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.6 passes. Item 6.7, 3125 Deborah Lane. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the Westlake area. We have one house. The owner is Robert Lee Dobbins, Jr., and we recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is that we do have objection. Mr. Landry.
No, I don't have an objection. I just got a question. I noticed that one is burned. Did it burn? Is that what caused the problem, or was it hurricane damage and then it burned later, or?
No, I think this structure burnt probably about 5 or 6 months ago.
So it was in disrepair and then somehow it caught on fire.
I think someone was living in it, and the house caught on fire, and it's just pretty much been abandoned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.7 passes. Item 6.8, 3538 Harmon Broussard Road. Mr. Robinson.
This is in the North Sulphur area. We have one manufactured home. Owner Harmon Joseph Broussard. We recommend this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.8 passes. Item 6.9, 2019 Sam Houston Jones Parkway. Mr. Robinson.
This structure has been repaired, and we're going to recommend no further action on this one.
I have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, item 6.9 passes. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. At this time, I would like to take a point of personal privilege. I had the opportunity to visit this Tuesday, myself and my parish administrator, Mr. Beam, the Louisiana Workforce Commission Community Action Showcase and Hero Awards Day, which Mr. Randy Vincent put on. And there was a very special employee here at the parish that was awarded an award. And at this time, I would just like Mr. Vincent to tell us a little bit about that and that person that received that very special award.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry, and good evening to the jurors. The Louisiana Workforce Commission decided this year that they needed to start focusing more on trying to engage all of the different agencies in the community who deliver human services to make sure that we're leveraging our resources and that we're identifying those citizens who deliver outstanding service in each of our regions. We were actually joined by Allen, Beauregard, Cameron, and Cameron parishes for this particular event. One of the reasons I think it's important that they decided to do that this year is because as we began to administer the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the ARA grants that we received and were awarded last year and began to spend this year, is that they did so without giving us additional administrative support. So they realized that they were putting a lot of pressure on the agencies, and they realized that we've got some very special people to take on a grant that more than doubles what your normal responsibility is a very special thing. So they talked to all of the directors in the different regions, and they wanted us to nominate a citizen or a business person or someone who participated in the Hour Grant as a vendor, and nominate them so that they could be recognized publicly. So this year, and it is the first year that they put on this event, they plan to make it an annual event. This year we were fortunate because we had one of our own employees who has displayed a tremendous amount of dedication and professionalism in all that she does. Charmaine Turpo is the individual that was nominated, and she was awarded a plaque from the state recognizing her efforts. And just to tell you very quickly some of the unique things that they pointed out about Charmaine as we described her work effort. Charmaine works for us as an accountant in the Office of Community Services. And typically, a person who is in accounting, they want to deal with numbers. And she reminds me of that on a regular basis. I deal with the numbers. But Charmaine goes way beyond that. She is willing to help with any strategic planning efforts that we may have to take on, any special events that we put on. She's right there with us. Advisory board meetings, she's right there with us. The most unique thing that I like to point out about her is that the toughest job in our department is answering that phone. Because when citizens call and they need something, they are not always in a good mood, or they're not always patient, but she always finds a way to deal with them. And she actually volunteers to answer that phone, which I think is a very special thing. But we wanted to recognize Charmaine because she has displayed a great amount of dedication to her job, to her co-workers, and she shows a lot of patience when dealing with the state and all of our grantors. The award basically says, Charmaine Turpo, 2010 Community Action Hero for Calcasieu Parish Office of Community Services. Now, it was a very special award because half of the room who knew her, there wasn't a dry eye when she was pointed out to receive this award. So I'm very glad to get this over with because it was a very special thing. We all know how special she is, and we thought you should know as well.
Thank you. Let's give a good round.
As I mentioned in a program the other day, it's not that I do it for any type of recognition. I'm presented with a task on a daily basis, and I like what I do, and I'm just trying to fulfill my job to the best of my duties. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations again. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. It's time we'll move on to item number 11, consideration approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated August 19, 2010. I have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Mr. Scott. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 11 passes. Item number 12, consideration approving the General Insurance Committee report dated September 23, 2010. That meeting was canceled, therefore no action is taken on that item. Moving on to item number 13. Excuse me.
Ask Brian something?
Yes, you may, Mr. Hassett.
When will we have that meeting rescheduled?
It should be October 7th. We'll get with Ms. Griffin as chair, but Mr. Milner, he's just really ill and he couldn't make it. We felt it was better to push it back, but October 7th should be the reschedule. We'll get a notice.
Mr. Beam. Moving on to item number 13, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the parish administrator to negotiate the terms and conditions of a lease agreement of the office space on a certain portion of the fourth floor of the 901 building, Lake Shore. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Landry. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 13 passes. Item number 14, consideration of adopting a resolution accepting
14.
Highland Forest Part 2, Phase 3, Part B subdivision located on East Forest Road and Forest Cove. I have a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Mr. Stelly. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 14 Passes. Item number 15, take appropriate actions on ST 03-001-10, Phase 3, which is a request by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury to reclassify certain tracts of land in Ward 3 near the intersection of Highway 397 and Highway 14 East as follows. Track A from I-1 to Light Industrial to C3, Central Business Commercial. Track B from A1 Agriculture to C2 General Commercial, and Track C from A1 Agriculture to I1 Light Industrial. I have a motion by Mr. Andrepont and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 15 passes. Item number 16, consideration of adopting a resolution amending the current procedure and ordinance
Move on,
relative
16.
to disposition of adjudicated properties within Calcasieu Parish. At this time, I'd call on Mr. Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just kind of tell you what we're doing here. We're requesting a resolution to amend the current procedure and ordinances relative to the disposition of adjudicated properties. We would like to utilize Act 947 of the 2010 regular legislative session that states that the governing authority of each political subdivision may elect to sell adjudicated property at public sale to the highest bidder without setting a minimum bid or requiring an appraisal. We're also asking to increase the amount of time to close on the sale from 1 year to 18 months in order to eliminate multiple extensions. Let me just kind of bring you up to speed here. Is currently we're working on under some legislation that took place in 2008, which required us to have mandatory appraisals. And they basically said is that if you appraise something, you had to sell it at a minimum of 2/3 of the value. If it didn't sell at 2/3 of the value, you had to sell it at 1/3 of the value. Well, I mean, it just doesn't really make sense to do that. And I know the state was trying to update their regs and so forth. And what it's done, it's really kind of stymied our work with adjudicated properties because of that. So what this act will do is it will help us, because then we can let the minimum bid and let the developers, they'll tell us what they will pay for it. And so we would certainly recommend that we enact these procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. Is there any discussion by the jury? Discussion. Mr. Scott.
Mr. Vickers, why does it take so long? Why does it take 12 months? Why do we need to go to 18? Does it take that long to sell them a piece?
Well, I think part of it is due to the economy and people that, we've had people that have expressed interest in certain parcels and everything, and they just haven't been able to come up with the money. Things are tight right now, and if you look at some of our past agendas, we've had to give extensions anyway. So I would rather try to eliminate the extensions and just give a 1.5 years and say, you ought to be able to do it at that time, and that's our position on it. Is we think it's needed. If the economy picks up, then we maybe can go back to a 12-month period, but I just don't see that happening right now. And it's certainly within our interest to try to dispose of these properties and get them back, to whereby that they're in the hands of citizens and they can do something with it.
In this 12 to 18th month process, who's paying to maintain this property while they're waiting to get their money?
Well, it depends on where it is. If it's in the cities, then the city may be having to cut grass or do work. They may have to do demolition. If it's in the unincorporated areas, then we may be faced with doing that.
But are we getting reimbursed that while they've already said how much they're going to pay for it, but yet they can't get their money? Are they going to be paying that money that we're continuing to spend to upkeep this while we're seeing if they can get the money in 12 to 18 months?
Well, what we do now is we keep up with the costs that we incur on every lot, particularly in the unincorporated areas where we have complete jurisdiction over. So, yes, they have to pay that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We had a motion by we have discussion. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vickers, isn't there, though, there's a number of those, it's not that they don't have the money. Isn't that correct? I mean, a number of times that they come back to us, I mean, I think more times than not, it's not necessarily that they don't have the money or can't get it. It's that they're trying to, I guess, is it a clear title of the property, or some of the legal things are trying to be cleared up on it? That's what I understood.
Well, sometimes that is an issue. When we sell a piece of property, we don't warranty the title. But they know that in advance. That's part of our regulations. We tell them that. And we also always tell them that you need to consult with an attorney when you buy this particular property. But what happens is some people just don't do that. They take it on themselves. They feel like that they've worked in real estate long enough, and they feel like they can figure it out for themselves. But we always tell people, look, consult with an attorney, because we will not warranty the title. And that's within our deed, and it's been within our deeds ever since we've had adjudicated property.
And so the title work sometimes takes a long time.
Well, what happens is a lot of times people will buy the property and then they will get the title quieted, okay? And you know, that takes some time. They will get with an attorney, and then it goes before a judge, and they would have full title. Some people don't want to quiet the title. They just have it for investment, or if it's an adjoining lot next to their house, they don't worry about that. So it just really depends on what the needs of the individual buyer is.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. We had a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any, we have more discussion. Mr. Scott.
Just one more question, Mr. Vickers. So we extended to 18 months now. Now that gives them, well, look, I'm at 18. I mean, if we keep stretching it out, that gives them longer periods to come back and say, is 18 months going to be it? Are we going to cut it off? Or are we going to, at 18 months, let them come back in here and say, well, I needed, you know, just a few more months? That's a long time.
I agree. I think we're going to cut it off. It's 18 months. That's it. You've got to do it by 18 months.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 16 passes. Item number 17, consideration of adopting an ordinance rescinding ordinance number 5716 adopted on October 22nd, 2009, which
17.
allows an extension, and ordinance number 5382 adopted on October 4th, 2007, which allows Ms. Michelle Cole to purchase the following described property for $5,000. That's 26 block of Belden Street. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion?
Do we have an agenda note with that one?
Yes.
Yes, we do, Ms. Griffin. Ms. Michelle Cole failed to fulfill the necessary requirements in order to complete the sale. It is the recommendation of the Director of the Division of Planning and Development to re-advertise the sale of the above-mentioned property. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 17 passes. Item number 18, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the cooperative endeavor
Move
agreement
on,
between the
18.
police jury and the city of Lake Charles, wherein the police jury will transfer two portions of property obtained by the virtue of adjudication which are needed to facilitate the city's Enterprise Boulevard Bond Project. I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Point and a second by Mr. Brame. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 18 passes. Item number 19, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a lease agreement between the police jury and Mr. and Mrs. Roland Granger in the amount of $100 for a property located at 2928 Renee Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70615, which was acquired through a flood mitigation grant and must remain as open space. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. Item number 19 passes. Item number 20, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the Director of the Office of Juvenile Justice Service to negotiate the terms and conditions of a professional service agreement between the Police Jury, Office of Juvenile Justice Service, and the Educational and Treatment Council in an amount up to $30,000 for coordination, consultation, assessment, and treatment service relative to the Calcasieu Juvenile Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Initiative. I have a motion by Mr. Mackey and a second by Mr. Brame. That's Dr. Mackey. Mr. Landry marked it as that. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 20 passes. Item number 21, consideration of adopting a resolution amending the multi-year project base voucher housing assistance payment contract
Second.
entering into an April 3rd, 2008 with Delta Crossing Development for 11 existing contracts units located at 1903 Corville Road in Benton, Louisiana. I have a motion by Mr. Hassan and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? We have discussion. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, sir. I need a little more detail. Who could help me with that on number 21?
Mr. Polite.
We have Mr.
Mr.
Polite.
Thank you,
Polite,
sir.
please state your name and position with the parish, please. Thank you.
Tarek Polite, Coordinator of Federal Programs. We have a contract with Delta Crossing over in Benton, Louisiana for 11 contract units for project-based housing. We want to increase that number from 11 units to 13 units.
Is this something that is this something that is usually done for assistance if there is an increase of our demand for these units all over? I mean, I haven't
Actually,
seen this before.
Actually, it is quite rare. Due to the location of Benton, we've entered into this contract with this developer to assure that we have housing in the Benton area.
Okay.
So most of the times, most of our clients will not go from Lake Charles to Benton. So to ensure that we have housing in the Benton area, we enter into contracts with the developers.
And it's needed real badly because it's growing. That's good. This is new, and I just wanted to know more about it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion by the jury for Mr. Polite? Thank you, Mr. Polite. Hearing none, item number 21 passes. Item number 22, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the Housing Department to submit its streamlined annual plan for fiscal year 2011 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in accordance with HUD guidelines and regulations. I have a motion by Mr. Hassan and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 22 passes. Item number 23 requires no action. It has been withdrawn. At this time, we'll move on to item number 24. Consideration of adopting a resolution approving a contract between the police jury and the Louisiana Workforce
Move on
Commission
24.
Second.
Office of Workforce Development for grant funding in the amount up to $272,211 for the period of October 1st, 2010 through September 30th, 2011 to implement the combination strategy to empower people program and the Louisiana Job and Employment Program. I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Point and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 24 passes. Item number 25, consideration of the following
Move on 25, all
requests
bullets.
as previously recommended from the Office of Community Service Advisory Board. I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Point and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Let me just read those bullets into the record, please. It's 4 of them, starting with 25.1, adopt a resolution approving an agreement between the police jury, Office of Community Service, and the Louisiana Department of Education to sponsor the Family Daycare Home Food Program for the year of 2010 through 2011. 25.2, adopt a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for a grant funding for coverage of the actual cost of one computer system valued at $2,200 and one pressure washer valued at $900 to be utilized for the Calcasieu Parish Transit Program. 25.3, adopt a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for a grant for 100%. 25.4, adopt a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for a grant in the amount of 100%. That was all those bullets. We had a second and we had a motion and a second on all of those items. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 25 passes.
I don't think we did, Mr. President.
We didn't?
We did not, sir.
Can I?
Yeah, Mr.
Oh, well, we heard it. Mr. Landry,
we
you're
did?
doing my chart.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to move you from my chart if you can't keep up now,
I
Mr.
must
Landry.
have fallen asleep. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
It took a
Landry.
while to get through those.
I understand, but we did get a motion and a second on that. Thank you, Dr. Maggie, for always keeping us on track. Moving on to item number 26, consideration of adopting a resolution declaring various parish items as surplus property to be sold as appropriate as a trade-in or through the CGov auction, parish auction, or private sales. The chair would entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Mr. Breen. We have discussion. Mr. Scott.
Mr. Beam, I guess. I understand auctioning it off, but what do we mean by private sale? That sounds a little.
If Mary's here, I'll defer to her. I'm not exactly sure how that
Because.
works.
You can't just sell something privately, it's public property.
Who's coming from us?
Is she here?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Private sales?
Looking out for my feet.
Yeah.
Please state your name and position with the parish, please.
Mary Flavin, purchasing agent. The private sale would be if we chose to bid just that one particular item, where we would advertise for bid for those items. So that would be considered the private sale.
All right, that's a lot more clear. Bid for private sale.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Is there any other questions at this time?
Picky.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, any objections? Hearing none, item number 26 passes. Item number 27, take appropriate actions on bids received by the parish purchasing agent on Tuesday,
Second.
September 14, 2010, for the purchase of sheet pile for use by the Division of Engineering and Public Works. I have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item number 27 passes. Item number 28 is an advised item that a public auction for the Louisiana Land Trust Road Home properties located in the parish of Calcasieu, Allen Beauregard, Jeff Davis, and Vernon will be held on Saturday, September 25th, 2010 at 10 a.m. with registration beginning at 8 a.m. in Courtroom A of the Calcasieu Parish Courthouse located at 1000 Rhine Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana. Number 29. Mr. McMillan. Item number 29 is an advised also that the Housing Department will be accepting Section 8 applications as follows. October 11, 2010, 8:30 a.m. through 3:30 p.m. at the First Church of God in Christ. That's 621 South Grand Avenue in DeQuincy, Louisiana. The second holding place will be October 12th through the 15th, 2010, 8:30 a.m. through 11:30 a.m. That's going to be the Office of Community Service, 2424 3rd Street, Lake Charles. That's Mr. Randy Vincent's office. Number 30 is an advised also that the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury Housing Development will be accepting registration until October 1st, 2010 for the Home Buyers Financial Literacy Educational class to be held as follows. October 9th, 2010, 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. That's going to be at the Central Library, 301 West Claude Street, Lake Charles. The second place will be October 13th, 2010, 5 p.m. up until 8 p.m. That's going to also be at the Central Library, 301 West Claude Street here in Lake Charles. Number 31 also is an advised item that the adjudicated property will be offered for the sale by the Director of the Division of Planning and Development on October 26, 2010. At this time, is there any items? We do have discussion. Mr. Andrew Point?
Point of personal privilege.
Mr. Andrew Point, you may have your point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the jury, for those of you who could not attend Region 7 Executive Board last night, I want you to know that Calcasieu Parish was well represented by members of the jury and also staff. Every parish, which is really unusual, every parish of the region, which is 8 parishes, was all represented last night, and I've seen times where not all the parishes were there. I want to thank my colleagues and the other 7 parishes who re-elected me to the executive board last night. I really appreciate that, and I will represent you to the highest integrity, I promise you.
You've done a great job, Mr. Andrew Point. We have no doubt.
Don't clap, throw money. I need it.
We had 2 other employees that attended, was Ms. Kathy Smith and Ms. Jessica. Would y'all like to have any comments on how you guys enjoyed yourself on last night?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that Chef Roy
Yes, he
really,
is.
they did
He is an
outdo
outstanding
themselves
chef.
last night, and they served it hot, if you can believe that.
Yes. You did.
I'm through.
Any other discussion?
Move to adjourn.
At this time, I'll take a motion. I have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Mr. Haslett. Meeting has now been adjourned.